challenging quarterback decisions here. New York Giants. And look, they opted into this. Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and then first rounder Jaxson Dart. Tommy DeVito is also there, slinging some cutlets and everything for morale. This is the most interesting quarterback room in the world, maybe in history. But Russell Wilson comes in on the cheap. Jameis Winston comes in really on the cheap. I still cannot believe Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston are in the same QB room. And then the Giants traded up back into the first round to get Jaxson Dart. Didn't give up a ton to go get Jaxson Dart. Gave up a few picks, but nothing significant. This wasn't future of the franchise altering. So a decent investment to go get Jaxson Dart and take a shot on the second quarterback selected in this draft in Jaxson Dart. So how does this shake out here for the Giants?
I feel like this is one where it's like, the angel and the devil on either shoulder. I think the Giants, process-wise, this has been sound. They have Russell Wilson, a starter, who is still, he's a viable starter. He's not what he used to be. He's not particularly good anymore, but he's fine. And you have Jameis Winston, who is a very capable, like one of the better backups in the NFL still. Again, he's unique. He's a weirdo from a personality standpoint. And even just in terms of quarterback, he's a weirdo, right? High volatility, probably still the most volatile quarterback in the NFL. You're capable of phenomenal, amazing 350-yard, 5-touchdown games. You're also capable of utter meltdowns, turnovers all over the place, whatever. And then you have the rookie, the guy that you traded up to get and is in position now to be your quarterback of the future. A lot of it, I think, comes down to how real is your belief in Jaxson Dart? Did you really believe he's the guy, or is this simply, the product of a bad quarterback class and you were in position to go get him in the second round? You knew you could wait because nobody likes these quarterbacks and he wasn't that good and you can go get the guy. If they really believe Jaxson Dart is the future, but not necessarily the present, I think they're incredibly well set up to start Russell Wilson, to turn to Jameis if and when Russell Wilson plays his way to the bench or gets injured, and Jaxson Dart effectively did not have to step foot on the field this year. And next year, you can really push him in there as a starter and go forward. When teams have that as their aspirational utopian plan, it rarely works out, or not because they're forced into it, just because they get impatient, right? And they just end up turning to the rookie because it's easier to sell. And, oh, look, hope. Like when you get to deepest, darkest November and things have gone south and both quarterbacks are awful, it's easy to spark life into a fan base by saying, but look, the rookie's going to start this week, even if like he's not any better than these guys. This isn't going to go well. So I think if the Giants believe that Jaxson Dart can be the future and, is a real option, the better angel on their shoulder will be saying, don't play him this year. Develop him from the sideline. Let him learn from the veterans. Try and work, coach him up from the meeting room. Don't put him out there until next year. What I think will happen, though, is that eventually the devil on the shoulder will say, yeah, but, the other two guys stink. It's not going well. You might as well throw him out there. He might be, maybe he's the guy, or like maybe he's the guy that just looks different, and it's all good, and you can have a good Christmas. Wouldn't you like a good Christmas? So that's what I think will happen. But I think the former should be the way you go.
The one constant in all of these veteran versus rookie debates is the human nature aspect of the decision makers, which is tricky. Like, I like to play GM Steve. We like to play that game, but that's like in this utopian, I'm always looking to the future. I'm always doing what's best for the organization. Then the human element comes in. And when it comes to certain situations, it's like, well, you have a new GM and he wants to get his guy in there. But this is the one that it is unique in that you have year 4 of Joe Shane, the GM, and Brian Daboll, the head coach. And so it feels like a pivotal year for both of those guys. Whereas most of the time with a rookie, it coincides with, I got 5 years left on my contract. I don't need to rush him. We'll do what's best for him for the next year or whatever it might be. Then you have what you said, and we've seen this historically, where the coach who's losing his team and thinks he's going to save his job. It's like, well, Jared Goff in 2016, Jeff Fisher put him in at the end of the year, and John Fox put in Mitch Trubisky at the end of the year in 2017. And it's like, well, this is what's going to save my job. And it doesn't actually work. It doesn't really work necessarily, but the coach does. The other element, I mean, I hate that line of thinking, but it's real. Like, we were at dinner at the Super Bowl with a well-known media analyst who was theorizing what the Titans should do, and was like, Brian Callahan should push for Sam Darnold was the suggestion, because he could sell that he could save Sam Darnold. He could make him this and that, and then, flip the number 1 overall pick. And it's like, but that's how people are thinking. Like, they're saying, if I was Brian Callahan, who might be on the hot seat in year 2, I would suggest the veteran, because I might be best positioned for success for me. And this is a media member who's suggesting what the head coach should do is best for him. So what's best for Daboll here? Is it the veteran Russell Wilson, or is it, look, this is the first time I've had my hand-picked quarterback, right? I think Todd McShay was breaking this all down, where Brian Daboll said, this is my guy, Jaxson Dart. I don't want Shedeur. I don't want these other guys. I want Jaxson Dart. And it's on Joe Shane to go get him, which he did. So in this situation, is Daboll's best situation, or his best outcome, actually my guy, Jaxson Dart? And the sooner we can get him in, that's actually what is going to save my job, because this is the first time I was stuck with Daniel Jones. You guys brought him back for me, whatever. I got the most out of Daniel Jones. We went as far as we could. But Jaxson Dart is actually my guy, whereas a lot of times the job saving is like, get the veteran as long as you can, and then, okay, now I have to, break in case of emergency, bring in the rookie. So if he's good, then I do get another job, where Daboll is actually saying, I need my guy as soon as possible.
So there's a couple of things that differentiate this one, I think, from the other battles that we've been talking about. Like, the Saints and the Browns have both obviously prepared for next year. The Saints, because we expect them to be pretty bad, and the Browns because they've actively gone and pushed first-round picks into next year. So both those teams you can look at and say, this team is probably, planning for next year as much as this year. The Giants are the one, though, where you can say, look, they've kind of gone, this is their quarterback. Like, they have identified Jaxson Dart as the guy, and they're not looking to next year necessarily. So their primary motivation right now is like, what's best for Jaxson Dart, as opposed to like what's best for the Giants overall, right now or in 12 months time. So then you get back to this referendum on, do you start a young quarterback right away, or do you develop him from the sideline? And the tricky part about that is, I don't know that there's a hard and fast answer to that. Like, I don't know if the Packers strategy, for want of a better term, draft the guy, sit him on the sideline for 1 or 2 years if you can, and then throw him out there and he hits the ground running and you end up going Hall of Famer, or whatever. I don't know if that's a thing, or if the Packers have just gotten lucky twice, right? And equally, as you can point to a lot of instances where rushing a guy in who people said at the time needed time, right? The Blake Bortles of the world, like guys where when he was drafted, people were saying this guy should sit. And the plan was to sit him. And then, a month or two into the season, he's out there getting killed for a bad team. You can point to a lot of those instances. The problem is that it doesn't necessarily follow that it would have been any different if you'd played the long game and developed him from the sideline. Like, he might have just been a bad quarterback. Equally, a year ago, we would have been saying, and I was saying, Drake May shouldn't play, right? He should sit in the sideline, not because he's not ready, but because the situation around him was so bad, it was potentially damaging. And Drake May, from very early on, was clear that it didn't matter. Like, he's able to overcome that. It's not damaging to him. There's no sign of this having a negative impact on Drake May, therefore start him. So I think it's difficult to say whether, should you say philosophically, I believe that sitting and learning from the sideline for like a year is a good thing for quarterbacks. Therefore, we're just going to do that all the time, right? I will always do that for my quarterbacks. Or do you say part of the job of being a general manager or a personnel guy is identifying when you have Drake May, right? Being able to see this guy doesn't need that. I generally lean in this direction, but it's clear that Drake May can start right away. That's the problem that the Giants are currently facing, right? Do they say, I think the best thing generally is Jaxson Dart does not play football in 2025, and that's the best thing for him going forward, and that's the best thing. Therefore, for the Giants is we're giving our quarterback the best chance to succeed. Or do they say, part of me, like the reason I have this job as Joe Schoen is I can see when Jaxson Dart is ready. And if I think he's ready week 5, coincidentally, when the other guys played his way to the bench, it's time to give him the go. Like it's time for the green light. That's the problem, right? Is that those two things tend to meet, right? When you think he's ready versus when the other guy is ready to be sat down. That's the issue with that.
Hey guys, just taking a quick break to tell you, hey, just over 50% of you are still unsubscribed to Check the Mic. It helps the channel. It helps to make sure that you don't miss any of our shows. So if you have a chance, hit the subscribe button right now. But the one good thing that the New England Patriots did in the Gerard Mayo era of 1 year, the one good thing they did was give Drake May 30% of the reps as the backup when most of the time the backup takes 5%. That is the one good thing. That is the one thing I would steal that. That is because that is thinking long-term while also like that's the hybrid you're talking about with that the Browns dynamic of you kind of want to start the veteran, but you have to develop these rookies. And I wonder if the Browns will steal some of that. Right. I would have Jaxson Dart take a much higher percentage of the reps. Russell Wilson starts. Jameis Winston gives the speeches. I mean, that's just where we are with this QB room. Russ, you're the starter. Jameis, you're the minister / chaplain / inspirational speaker. I don't know if you're taking Jaxson Dart under your wing, but you're, maybe motivating him or whatever. And Jaxson Dart's taking 30, whatever percentage of the reps, that's way more than 5 to get him ready. And I do believe, right, when you say like Joe Schoen, this is my job to know when he's ready. I do believe like they have information. When you're getting 30% of the reps at practice or whatever that percentage is, that is way more information than we have. We don't see that. And you should be able to see growth because my theory has always been when the guy's ready, whatever the hypothetical is, when the guy's ready, he should play. And that could be week 1, that could be week 17, that could be year 2. Whenever he's ready, and I'll stand by that. Whenever Jaxson Dart's ready, I would say he should take over. What I don't want is Russell Wilson and the Giants are struggling. They're 1-7. We have to make a move to spark the team. Jackson get in there when he's not ready. That is the worst thing for the New York Giants. The best thing for the Giants is when Dart's ready, get him out there.
But that's the problem with that, right? Is that you're sort of like, okay, we're going to sit and wait until he's crossed this imaginary threshold where we believe he's ready to start. At the same time, the starter is typically not playing well on a team that's not winning games, and they're like the pressure is mounting for you to turn to another thing, right? So at the time where you're waiting for him to cross this line, there's a deflationary pressure on that line to be lower and lower because you're like, to hell with it. It's better than we've got right now. Like that's the issue with that. I think if you believed in a guy's ability to like genuinely maintain this is where he's ready, right? And until he crosses this, we're not doing anything. That's absolutely the correct way of doing it. The problem is, I think if you set that, like this is our bar and we're just going to wait until he's there, I think you lose sight of where that bar actually is because of the way the season's going. And I think it's easier to just say he does not play this year. We're just going to play for next year. And I think what's interesting about the Giants is I think Jameis gives you a better chance of like sticking to that, because even if Russell Wilson plays like crap and you're 1-3 and you're like, God, we got to change something, even like going into October, Jameis is a viable alternative to that, right? Maybe it's a short-term one. Maybe it's, but you at least are not 5 weeks into the season going, we got to throw a rookie out there. You can be 5 weeks of the season going, Jameis can spark something. Like Jameis could go for 350 and 3 touchdowns his first time off the bench. That's like an entirely reasonable expectation for Jameis Winston. You're not trapped in a world of we have to make a change, therefore the rookie has to play. You can go, we have to make a change. Like there's no way out of that, but we have Jameis Winston. I think that gives them a better chance of like sticking to their discipline and saying we don't have to play Jaxson Dart.
To answer some of the discussion in the chat about Jaxson Dart, his deep ball, and what I said around draft time, I thought Jaxson Dart's deep ball was inconsistent as far as accuracy goes. There were a lot of open throws that he missed. He made some beautiful throws, of course, but he had a high percentage of opportunities in that Lane Kiffin offense. But I thought his touch was just a little off. He was short on some, long on some, whatever it might be. But the other point that Drake makes, he was aggressive and took shots. So both of those things are true. I think if you were charting his accuracy, it was inconsistent. But if you said, did he give Trey Harris an opportunity on this jump ball? Absolutely. So it's both things. Like, he gives guys opportunities to make plays. That's great from Malik Neighbors. But I also think if you're looking for, is he going to have a high percentage of pinpoint deep balls? I think he's going to be on the lower end of that. But that tends to fluctuate anyway. So I thought it was inconsistent accuracy, but it gives guys opportunities to make plays down the field.
Yeah, and look, there's an argument to make that, generally speaking, quarterbacks should sit on the sideline and not play year one. Like, you could make that argument that generally speaking, that's the thing to do. Specific to Jaxson Dart, though, I think you can also look at it and say, look, that's an offense that's very different from anything he's going to have to do this year. Like, the departure, the learning curve between the offense he was in and the offense he's now in is significant. And is a larger journey to take than a lot of other quarterbacks. You can also look at it and say, look, the stuff that people were terrified about for Shedeur Sanders, the sack rate, the fact that he doesn't necessarily have a good feel for the pocket and when to get out of there and how to get out of there. I think you can look at that and say a lot of that applies to Jaxson Dart as well. His last 2 years were pretty terrible in terms of pressure to sack rate. His escapability felt very, very bad at times. So I think there's a couple of reasons you would look at Jaxson Dart specifically and say, I don't want him starting early football games.
The last thing I just want to reiterate here, the challenge as an executive, as Joe Schoen, it's the managing up, right? So there's the expectations of fans. No fan wants to lose, right? We're in optimism season. No fan is like, man, let's just do what's best by Jaxson Dart. Hope we're good in 2026. It's training camp season, man. Everybody's confident. Everybody's like, yeah, we drafted all the best players. We're gonna knock off the Eagles and win the NFC East. Fan expectations and then owner expectations. The ability to manage up. And even if you have a good game plan, even if Shane and Daboll have this great plan, like Jaxson Dart's not seeing the field till 26, or we're going to see him in week 9, whatever the plan is, when you're 1-7, I keep throwing that out there. If you're 1-7, do you have the patience to carry out the plan? And can you manage up and deal with that? So that's where the human element comes in. And whatever the best laid plans are, they might change after week 1, right? They change pretty quickly. And I can't wait to see how it plays out. My prediction, though, is Russell Wilson gets the start. I think, to your point, maybe Jameis comes in if he is underwhelming. I think we see Jaxson Dart by midseason. I don't think we see a whole season of him sitting, because we're talking about year 4 at the executive level, at the coach level. Jaxson Dart's in there by week 7 to 10, I believe, and he surpasses Wilson and Winston.
Yeah, I think this is where the what I think will happen departs from what I would do if I was running things. I think the depth chart as it currently stands is the depth chart that will exist in week 1. Russell Wilson 1, Jameis Winston 2, Jaxson Dart 3. I think if and when they make a change at quarterback during the season, they will probably skip Jameis and go straight to Jaxson Dart, right? And that will be the thing. If I was running things, I think I would look again. So Sports Debate Arena is saying, do you not think it's important to see if the quarterback you drafted is worth skipping on one next year for when you expect blah, blah, blah? Yeah, but I think this is where the point you made, like, I agree. I would give Jaxson Dart 30% of the reps all season long, all training camp long. Jameis doesn't need reps. It's not going to make a difference. Jameis is blindfolded as a quarterback anyway. Who cares if Jameis has got reps, right? I don't think that Jameis could have no reps whatsoever between now and week 5 or 6 when you need to throw him in there. And I don't think it would alter whatsoever his performance in that game. So I don't care if Jameis ever sees the ball before I need him on the field. Russ can take 70% of the snaps, 30% can go to Jaxson Dart. In those 30% of snaps between now and week 7 or whatever it is, when you need to make a change at quarterback, I think you will have signal on what Jaxson Dart is or is going to be, right? I don't think you need to necessarily see him on the field to determine that, at least directionally, right? If you've got faith that he's your quarterback going forward, you're still going to have an idea of whether that's legitimate or not by the point you need to make that call. So I don't think you necessarily need to see him, right? If he doesn't look like the guy in practice, you're probably going to have to, you're probably already going to be thinking about alternatives. If he does, I don't think you need to throw him in there in week 12 to determine that.
I think the chat suggested Russell Wilson. I think that's the overwhelming consensus. We're going to see Russell Wilson week 1 as far as winning the training camp battle.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.